The 330e's combustion engine is the same twin-scroll turbocharged 181 bhp 2.0-liter petrol unit that powers the 320i. But hooked up in train with an 87 bhp electric motor, it makes for an identical 249 bhp peak as the 330i, as well as 52 pounds-foot more torque than its petrol-only sibling. That's the kind of pulling power that ought to present itself in our in-gear acceleration figures, particularly since it's on tap from just 1,500 revolutions per minute. For competitive context, that's a good 25% less pulling power than Mercedes claims for the C350e, but it's marginally more than you get from a Volkswagen Passat GTE. Drive battery capacity may be of greater interest to most clued-up PHEV buyers, of course, since that's the biggest telltale of electric-only range and real-world fuel economy. The 330e's 7.6 kWh of battery capacity exceeds what you get in a Mercedes C350e, but it's beaten by the 9.9 kWh of a Passat GTE and drubbed by the Volvo V60 D5's 11.2 kWh. But then batteries are heavy and can be very punitive on a car's ride and handling, as the V60 shows. Backseat passengers don't have it quite so good. Most adults will find adequate levels of comfort, although frequent occupants would probably thank you for choosing a Passat GTE instead of the BMW. Boot space, meanwhile, takes a hit because of the battery pack tucked under the floor. At 370 liters, it's more than 100 liters smaller than a conventionally powered 3 Series. With the exception of some blue detailing and a battery charge depletion, recuperation graphic in the main instrument binnacle, the 330e's interior barely deviates from that of the rest of the 3 Series lineup. The most significant addition is a small button marked eDrive that sits just behind the gear selector. Auto eDrive, Max eDrive and Save Battery are the modes to choose from, respectively, balancing the car's 2 power sources, operating the powertrain on electric power alone, or saving battery charge for later. Overall, the 330e's interior remains as intuitive and fundamentally right as you'd expect of a volume-selling saloon from BMW. That said, this is also an interior that, barring an occasional refresh, has been in production since November 2011. Back then, you might have called it driver-centric, but now it feels more utilitarian, particularly next to the heavily digital, clean-cut class of the A4 and curvaceous elegance of the C-Class. Only the Giulia and Biz can compete with the BMW from the perspective of keen drivers, though. The 330e uses BMW's Idrive System, with its rotary dial mounted on the transmission tunnel and digital display sitting a little incongruously atop the dashboard. After years of refinement, it's now an intuitive setup, especially in comparison with newer touchscreen systems, flagging the sophistication of the latest software from rivals such as Volkswagen. BMW's connected drive system analyzes sat-nav data on the move to make the most efficient use of the energy stored in the car's battery. This can, BMW claims, result in the powertrain leaning more heavily on the electric motor than it otherwise would if you're traveling through a built-up area, for example. There's also the option of finding available public charging stations, provided they are operated by ChargeNow, BMW's own network of charging points.